Today is Tuesday, July 7th, 2026, and today is National Macaroni Day, which means someone, somewhere, is about to insist their grandmother makes the only macaroni recipe worth eating. And honestly, they might be right. But after digging through today's stories, I noticed they all had something in common. Each one was an attempt to make the future a little less uncertain. One by controlling a river, one by protecting your money, and one by asking a question that people still haven't stopped debating. Sometimes history is about certainty. Sometimes it's about learning to live without it. Welcome to Wait, That's Random, This Day in History. I'm C.L. Burns, voice actor, audiobook narrator, and a person who keeps discovering that history is somehow both fascinating and deeply concerning at the same time. On July 7, 1930, construction officially began on Hoover Dam. Today, it's one of the most recognizable engineering projects in the United States. Millions of people visit it every year. Most admire the view, take a few pictures, then head to Las Vegas. But before Hoover Dam, the Colorado River had a reputation for doing pretty much whatever it wanted. Some years it flooded, destroying farmland and communities. Other years, there wasn't enough water to support the growing population of the Southwest. It was unpredictable. And that's a dangerous quality when people are trying to build cities. Engineers proposed something incredibly ambitious. Build a massive concrete dam in Black Canyon. Control the river. Store water for dry years. Generate electricity. And provide enough dependable resources for an entire region to grow. It sounded almost impossible. The project required thousands of workers, millions of cubic yards of concrete, and new construction techniques that had never been attempted on such a scale. If all of the concrete had been poured in one continuous block, the heat trapped inside would have taken well over a century to cool. So engineers divided the dam into interlocking sections with cooling pipes running through them. It was an elegant solution to a problem no one had faced before. When Hoover Dam was completed, it didn't just hold back water. It helped transform the American Southwest. Cities like Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Los Angeles all benefited from the reliable water and electricity it made possible. I've always been fascinated by projects like this. Sometimes the greatest engineering achievement isn't building something taller. It's making nature just a little more predictable. And of course, not every invention protects a city. Sometimes it protects your vacation. On July 7, 1891, American Express introduced traveler's checks. And if you're under a certain age, there's a decent chance you've never seen one. For much of the 20th century, though, they were considered one of the safest ways to travel. Imagine you're taking a trip across Europe. You need access to money. Your options? Carry a wallet stuffed with cash, which could be lost or stolen. Or carry traveler's checks. Each check was purchased in advance and signed when you bought it. Then, when you wanted to use one, you signed it again in front of the person accepting it. The signatures had to match. If your checks were lost or stolen, American Express could usually replace them. That was revolutionary. Instead of worrying about carrying your entire vacation budget in your pocket, travelers carried pieces of paper backed by a company people trusted. For decades, they became almost as essential as a passport. Then something interesting happened. ATMs became common. Debit cards spread around the world. Credit cards became more widely accepted. Eventually, smartphones let us pay with devices we already carried everywhere. Traveler's checks quietly faded into history. It's funny how quickly technology changes our habits. An invention that once felt indispensable can become something younger generations have never even heard of. And our final story proves that uncertainty can be powerful too. Sometimes the questions people can't answer are the ones they remember the longest. On July 7, 1947, a story emerged from Roswell, New Mexico that would become one of the most enduring mysteries in modern history. It started with a rancher named William Brazel. He discovered strange debris scattered across part of his property. Not knowing exactly what it was, he reported it to the local authorities. Soon afterward, personnel from the nearby Roswell Army Airfield collected the material. Then something unusual happened. The military issued a press release announcing that it had recovered a flying disc. For a few hours, newspapers across the country carried the extraordinary story. Then, almost as quickly, that explanation changed. Officials now said the debris had come from an ordinary weather balloon. The headlines shifted. The story seemed over. Except, it wasn't. That sudden reversal became the spark that kept Roswell alive for generations. Over the decades, theories multiplied. Secret military experiments, government cover-ups, alien spacecraft. Witnesses came forward. Books were written. Television specials filled countless hours. In the 1990s, the U.S. government concluded the debris most likely came from Project Mogul, a classified balloon program designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests. For many people, that explanation settled the matter. For others, it added another chapter to the mystery. Whether you believe Roswell was a misunderstanding, a classified military project, or something far stranger, there's no denying its cultural impact. Sometimes history isn't remembered because everyone agrees on what happened. Sometimes it's remembered because no one ever completely does. And looking back across today's stories, they all revolve around trust. Trusting engineers to tame a river. Trusting a piece of paper to protect your money. Trusting the explanation we're given. Or wondering if there's more to the story. That brings us to someone whose career was built on making us question what we're seeing. Born on July 7, 1949, Shelley Duvall built one of the most unique careers in Hollywood. She never looked or sounded like a conventional movie star. And that was exactly what made her unforgettable. Many people know her as Wendy Torrance in The Shining. Her performance captured genuine fear and vulnerability so convincingly that audiences still talk about it decades later. Others remember her as Olive Oyl in Popeye, bringing warmth and humor to a character generations had grown up watching in cartoons. But one of my favorite parts of her career came later. She created and hosted Faerie Tale Theatre. Each episode retold a classic fairy tale using an astonishing lineup of actors. Robin Williams, Christopher Reeve, Mick Jagger, Susan Sarandon, Jeff Bridges, and many, many more. For a lot of children in the 1980s, that series became their introduction to timeless stories. I appreciate that Shelley Duvall never seemed interested in fitting neatly into Hollywood's expectations. She embraced unusual roles, unusual projects, and in doing so, created a career that was entirely her own. While looking back across today's stories, I kept coming back to one idea: confidence. Hoover Dam gave millions of people confidence that the river could be managed instead of feared. Traveler's checks gave travelers confidence that losing a wallet didn't have to ruin a journey. Roswell reminds us that confidence can disappear the moment new questions emerge. And Shelley Duvall showed that confidence doesn't always mean fitting in. Sometimes it means being comfortable enough to be completely yourself. Anyway, that's where today's journey through July 7th led. It seems fitting to leave you with these words from Eleanor Roosevelt. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. If you'd like to hear more of my work, audiobooks, or other projects I've somehow gotten myself involved in, you can find everything over at waitthat'srandom.com. I'm C.L. Burns, and honestly, thank you for spending a little time being curious with me. I'll see you tomorrow.